Since the beginning of time, there have been stories. Stories told in order to teach the highest and most valuable truths one has come to understand. So join me on an epic journey to hear those stories and discover the truths behind them. This is the Mythlore Cast. The Hellbringing. Ever since the dawning of the light and worlds among the heavens, there was also a darkness revealed. Places where the light pushed back the darkness and where dark arms tried to reach into the light. The Unlands was the source of this darkness, a place deep in the great expanse where there was truly nothing. Perhaps it was not even part of this world, but an entrance into another world or strange realm. I know not what happens there, only that it is where all darkness comes from, and it is the place all Adradari were sent to find and destroy. The true first day of creation would happen after they accomplished this mission. So the story goes, and the birth of the universe will truly begin. Though none know how old it is, it must still be very young according to the storytellers. There was one world where the Adradari named Asha took the light of the One, and it was among the first of the worlds to be brought into the light. This world was all a garden, and there Akole placed the first people of all worlds, and deep within this world he set the origin fire. And Asha was given the task of keeping the fire until the second birth of creation. Asha was married to Ava, the stewardess, and they guarded the fire together. Then they bore twin children. These were the first of the people called the Fireborn. The two children were named after their father and mother, and since Asha and Ava were commissioned to stay in the world, their children were trained in the ways of the Adradari, and after a few hundred years were called by Akole to take his light to other worlds and will reunite with their parents when creation is reborn. Before they left, both of them fathered and mothered many children with the people of the world, and these people were the Fireborn. Hey, what is up? Welcome to the Mythlore Cast. My name is AJ, and I'm your host. Real quick before we get into it a little bit further, this is part of a network of podcasts that I do, and I'm actually a heavy metal musician, and I use podcasts to create culture and connect with my fans. So if you like heavy metal, check out my solo metal project called Fire from Heaven. Now, we can get into it, but also one more thing to mention is the music in that production, not the intro, but like this episode, that the music I used in the production of this episode is actually music I produced, part of another project I'm starting called Fireborn, and it is going to be an instrumental orchestral project, and I haven't released that song yet, but I used it in this episode, and you'll be able to check out Fireborn soon on, most whatever your preferred streaming platform it is. I'm sure it'll be available there. But yeah, so that's another thing. You can check it out. You can check out all that I'm doing on my website, metalfirefromheaven.com. Now, let's get into it. And first of all, I apologize for being absent for so long. And second of all, I don't remember what the second point I was going to make, but I was also going to make another point to any new fans. The way I record podcasts is I do it raw and real, okay? And in fact, I just realized I don't even need these headphones on. So, we do raw and real here at Fire from Heaven Studios, okay? Now, we're going to get into this story. And, the other thing I was going to mention is the first episode, it was from one of my stories that I'm writing. Second episode was about the beginning of Tolkien's world, and I kind of just decided I'm not going to try and go through a mythology, a certain, do a massive series on a specific mythology or fantasy. I'm going to just do whatever floats my boat. And I can always make playlists and stuff later of, connecting the mythologies and stuff like that, or whatever, different fantasy worlds. But that's how I decided I'm going to do this, because sometimes I want to share things I'm working on. Sometimes I want to share, something else. And it's a little bit easier to just keep the thing going if I do that. So, yeah. But we are talking about the Hellbringing today. And this is part of a book series I'm working on. I say I'm working on books all the time, and I never finish half of them. But I am currently this is the one I'm working on, and I actually am going to finish this one before I start another one. Sometimes I'll start ideas for other ones, but this is like I said, I'm a heavy metal artist. I do symphonic, deathcore, death metal type of stuff. So if you're into that, check out Fire from Heaven, like I said. But anyways, I'm basically doing a thing where I'm releasing an album that's based on this story, and then I'm going to be releasing the book too. And I plan on doing a more well-produced audiobook version. This is kind of audiobook. I'm sharing a little bit of my book and turning it into a sort of audiobook. It's just music and reading. Of course, this intro part is narrating. But other parts of my books, when you get into the book a little bit more, and you're not just the lore that a narrator sort of tells, then you have a little bit of voice acting and stuff like that, which I'm planning on doing. So yeah, if you want to check that out, like I said, checking out my website, metalfirefromheaven.com is probably the best place. Or I upload all my podcasts on my band page. Yeah, crazy band. A band that actually uploads stuff rather than tour dates and album release dates. Yeah. But anyways, we're going to get into the story here. Enough for the other stuff. This is sort of the prequel to the book one that I'll be releasing. So I won't be releasing all the books at once. And I don't know if it'll be a full-on prequel book, or if I'll just include it as the beginning of the first book, which the first book is called The Storming of Hell. But we'll kind of just get into it. The first line is, ever since the dawning of the light and worlds among the heavens, there was also a darkness revealed. So if you remember the first episode of the podcast, Akole and Umbreoth, that is the beginning of basically all of the worlds that I in my fantasy books. It's the birth of my cinematic universe, basically. And you can check out that episode. That was the first episode, where it's basically how the world started, how this world started, my cinematic universe started. And it's basically it starts with this transcendent being called Okole, and then it's also it's kind of just a manifestation of darkness, but it's also if you could picture the absence of light embodied in a being, the absence of light and the absence of creation embodied in a being. That's what Umbreoth is, basically. But I'm getting on to explain the first episode. But that's, we're kind of like going back to it a little bit here, because this is how the whole cinematic universe starts. So this is how this world is going. There's going to be connections from this book to my other books. So yeah. But basically, when this creator like made the universe, it revealed the darkness, and it was basically still like the absence of his light and his creation. So that's kind of like the idea there. And there's a little bit of like references back to like what I talked about in the first episode, like light pushing back against the darkness trying to reach into the light. But then I reference like this, like the source of all the darkness that's like streaming into this universe, that's trying to creep in, like reach into the light and blot out the light, basically. That I just call the unlands. It's kind of a popular thing in fantasy to say things like that. Like I think there was one book I read where it was like it was a Grisha trilogy where like the fold is, and it's just basically a desert. They called it the unsea. So, and there's like things like that you'll hear in like writings by C.S. Lewis or Tolkien. So it's kind of like it's basically to say that it's like not a world, but it is kind of. I don't know. It's just like it's fantasy lingo, okay? If you're not familiar with it, maybe you shouldn't be into fantasy, okay? Or maybe you need to listen to more. I don't know. But it's basically the place that it's like the source, and it's basically like the heart of Umbreoth, I guess you could say. Or it's I even like allude to it could be the entrance into another world, which is like where Umbreoth comes from. I don't know. I'm just kind of like making stuff up here because I don't know how how I'm gonna like make all this stuff turn out still, when I get to it. But just to provide a little bit of context before we keep going, it's like the Hellstormer book. It's basically in this world, like it talks about the creation of this world. We'll get into that and everything later on, like where the actual book starts, where like the storming of hell, the book 1 starts. It is going to be like completely opposite of how it was when it was first created. It's like completely fallen and just like decimated. Like I mentioned here that it was like a garden, and like in the book 1 of the storming of hell, it's basically opposite of that. It's like all a desert, and it's run by this evil force that is called like demons or devils. Like they're not really spiritual beings in the sense they are in like some stories, like in the Bible and stuff. They're basically just like another sort of race of people, but I'm trying to figure out where it was. So now then I mentioned, that it's like the Adradari were the warriors created by Akole to take his light into all the farthest reaches of the universe and to find the place that I was mentioning, the unlands, like the source of the darkness. And that was their mission, was to destroy it. And that once it was, that would be the true first day of creation, is what I say. Or like I'll mention it later on, like the second birth of creation, or like where creation's reborn, And now, okay, so then you have the Adradari named Aisha, who took the light of the one, that is Akole, and it was among the first of worlds to be brought into the light. So Aisha was like one of the first Adradari to reach a world and take the light of Akole to it. So because of that, Akole gave Aisha a fire. It's called the Origin Fire, and he was actually given a different task from other Adradari, and he was given the task of keeping the fire and stewarding the world until the second birth of creation. And he was also with another Adradari named Ava, and they were married, and then they guarded the fire together, and they bore 2 children, and as I say that they're named after each other. So they had twin children that was named after them. And then they end up taking their place as Adradari and going out into the universe and taking light to other worlds. And but the first children of Aisha and Ava were like the first of the people called the Fireborn, which are going to be, like the main focus of the story later on in the first book. But yeah, I just talk a little bit about, that they're named after their father and mother, and like everything I just mentioned basically, and that they would reunite with their parents on this rebirth of creation, on this day of rebirth. But these two were like throughout their time on this world, because they're Adradari, they're basically eternal in a sense. Yeah, they are eternal. But they lived among the people of that world, and that, being eternal, obviously, like they would other people would die and stuff. So but they married and had children with lots of people, and that started like the people called the Fireborn, who kind of like continued on with the legacy of the first stewards, or these stewards, not the first, like they're still there, of the Origin Fire. And these people were given, they're not as powerful as the Adradari, but because they're descended from Adradari, they do have special powers. And I think in my lore book, when I was first talking about the Adradari and stuff, I was going to put that they couldn't have children or anything. But I think what made me change it is because these two are like, their commission is stay on this world. They're like not leaving it until the day of creation's rebirth. So that's why they were able to do that. And I might go back and change that now that I think about it. But that's kind of like, I might not write an entire book on it. Like I probably could, just fill it with some stories of maybe some adventures of these people, and some of the first struggles, like, because I don't know. I have like so many different things I want to do, and it's hard to stay focused on one thing because I have so many ideas. But I will get on, because I mentioned, darkness leaking into the universe and everything from the Unlands. So I just haven't got onto it yet, because I recently wrote this and decided I wanted to do like a prequel book. So I think I still am going to, because there's a lot leading up to this point that'll happen in the Storming of Hell. I mean, I mentioned a little bit of the lore, that kind of got the world to where it is now in that book. But there's definitely like a full book I could write about it, because what basically happens is, from this sort of unlands, or like this gateway from another realm, come the demon race, the demon people. I don't like saying race. They're just like, they're from another realm, but they're from a realm that only seeks to destroy and corrupt anything that is good. And that's basically what they do. And as I read the story, I'll share more on future episodes. But basically, what's gonna happen is through that, like I said, through that gate, they're gonna enter the universe, and that's how they plague different worlds. So, I haven't shared anything on my book, The Evil Wolf Chronicles, but in that book, there is a demon people that are basically the main enemy too. So I think that's how I'm gonna link the worlds and sort of like the universe, my cinematic universe. It's all linked back to like this kind of point, like where the world's created and everything, and then there's this otherworldly force, like other universally force, that's like coming into this new universe and trying to corrupt and destroy it. Not destroy it, but corrupt it, which will destroy it. But yeah. So there's a little bit about that. Sorry about my repetitive statements here, because I'm trying to gather my thoughts. Okay, it's early in the morning, all right? And that is all I'm going to have for you on this episode of the Mythlore Cast. Thank you for joining me. This is the first one where I'm doing it as a video podcast as well. So those of you who haven't heard the first couple of episodes, check it out on Spotify. That's the Mythlore Cast. And I'm going to go ahead and roll the outro.